What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about some things that have to change with video games if the price is going to go up. So we've had Nintendo, we've had Xbox, and we've talked about these things here and there, but I want to make a dedicated video to it. What specifically do we need to knock out of the gaming industry if prices are going to go up? And look, here's maybe a controversial thought. If this actually were to come out and it actually goes the way that I'm talking about in this video, like things actually I feel like would even out and actually maybe be like a net positive for the publishers and developers. Point being, I don't think people would be as mad as they are right now. But you have to take out a couple things that is currently going on right now. I can think of a couple things. One of the main things that you can kind of summarize into one is come out with finished games. Okay, so that's the first thing. $80 games, one of the main things that I feel like everybody would be able to take a collective just sigh of relief on is the game comes out and it's finished. Now, some games have gotten better at this. Some games have gotten, some publishers and developers have gotten kind of more proactive, right, where they are not going to release games that are broken messes, right? And there's some games that are in situations, I can think to like Battlefield 6, right, upcoming game. That game, I feel like the pressure is on, and they know. You can even look at maybe Assassin's Creed that just came out. So there's a future game, and there's a game that just released, where I really feel like it's just so widely known that they cannot come out as buggy messes that they simply, Assassin's Creed factually, I think, did not come out as a buggy mess. And Battlefield, you pray to God that game comes out fully functional, right? So, here's the thing. Like, is that really asking for all that much? The answer is no. It's actually almost kind of pathetic that we're saying, okay, we'll trade, right? You can raise the price $10. All we ask for is a complete game at launch. 20 years ago, that's all you got. Either you got a complete game at launch or you were never going to get that game, fully patched or anything. So really, I guess I'm just kind of asking the gaming industry to revert back, right, to where it was decades ago, which is pathetic, in its own way. But that is one thing, okay? Just the simple thing, if you're going to give us $80 games, those games better be at their best condition when the game launches. Now, okay, about the game launching, how about we go actually fast forwarding? How about before the game comes out? So this is something, and I've spoken about this. I mean, I fell into the trap even with like a Hogwarts Legacy when it wasn't that bad. I think that publishers are getting more and more greedy with it. Early access. So this is a big thing to me because one of the things that I always say online is like, okay, well, if you raise the price to 80, it's not even just raising the base price. You know what I mean? Like that's part of it. But when you raise the base to 80, you're raising the deluxe edition to 100 or 110 or 120. You're raising collector's editions to God knows how many. There's one other thing. I mean, that's actually a discussion right there, right? I mean, like that's you probably, if you're gonna do standard edition as being raised, you probably don't want deluxe edition to raise too much more, right? So if you're talking 80, deluxe edition, I feel like can't go over 90. But you know what? To what I'm about to say, that's almost a throwaway thing. Let's talk about games that you can pay for the early access. And this is kind of its own discussion, all on its own, but it's been something I've been very vocal. Again, even though I fell into the trap with Hogwarts, I feel like it's only gotten worse, right? 3 days early access, $20. 3 days early access, $30. I mean, there's some very egregious examples, and publishers and developers are actually getting smarter where they're tying it to like DLC or season passes. I think for as good, and I like this game, Warhammer, Space Marine 2. I think that's a really, really good game. I think for that game, you could get it like 5 days early, but it was like $30 or $40 more dollars, but they tied, I think, DLC into it. So it was this like awkward situation, at least for me looking at I was talking to a friend who's kind of outside, of this bubble, and we were talking about the same thing where it's like, if it was just, $30 for 5 days, that would be really, really pathetic. That'd be really bad. Now, some games actually do that, but I think they're getting smarter, right? And they're saying, okay, well, it's not just the early access. What if we tie some sort of like deluxe item to that, right, to try to make it more worth it? But this is something I want to vocalize and I really want to make known. I mean, if we're raising, it's as simple as this. If we're raising the base price $10, because oftentimes it's $10 to play it early, right? So if we're raising it $10, $80. Are we really going to raise it again? So I mentioned deluxe editions. Well, what about the reverse of that, right? Like playing it early. What about, okay, $80 is the new base. What about $90 to play it 3 days early? You know, it used to be $60 and then $70 to play it 3 days early. And that was like a testing period. And, you know, there were times that I was willing to do it or willing to kind of hear it out and willing to say, it's not that bad. But you know what? There was always that belief where it's like, they're just trying to test the waters, right? This is only going to get worse. And truthfully, it has only gotten worse. You get very little extra days. Like sometimes you get 5 days and that feels like the max, right? You get a couple days, maybe a week if you're lucky, but now instead of $10 more, now it's $20, now it's $25, now it's $30, and now the base price goes up, so will that go up? And then I guess the third and final thing, which is kind of a more ambiguous thing, is, you know, I mentioned making games complete in terms of like they run at their peak performance, you know, day one. How about just like delivering base games, right? So enough of, and this doesn't happen as much, but it does still happen from time to time, right? Games that finish on a cliffhanger, games that still need DLC, games that, you know, I mean, you can go off into like a live service having a discussion with this part too, where it's like, okay, if you're raising base prices to expect people to follow you through, like, okay, Suicide Squad factually, you know, was not part of this era, right? But what if Suicide Squad came out now? Or honestly, Assassin's Creed Shadows, you know, these are games, and I think Suicide Squad was probably a more egregious example, but both of them are pretty bad. Ending literally where you have to play more future content in order to finish the base game. Again, and this is just the same thing as like asking for a game to run at launch, right? Like it's such a pathetic ask because it really should just be a thing we already get. How about asking for a complete game? How about asking for, you tell the game that you're trying to tell, it doesn't rely on a sequel, it doesn't rely on DLC, it doesn't rely on a season pass, right? If it does those things, it's already bad. I mean, I lit Suicide Squad up for that. Assassin's Creed, you know, I don't even think I really talked about it for that, but I really was not pleased. I actually cannot believe Ubisoft did that with the opinion of Ubisoft Online, at least. I cannot believe they did it. It's not as bad, but it's definitely there. The game ends and it doesn't actually end. Like, you need that DLC that's eventually going to come out next year or whatever. Like, that's going to finish the story. So they literally did it. I mean, we've gotten bad examples of this, like games that kind of push this. We've gotten that throughout all of gaming history. But again, okay, it's one thing, you know, if you end your game and you need to kind of stick with a battle pass or season pass system. If the game's $40, well, if the game's $80, you better give me that full game, you know, as part of that $80, and not, okay, well, it's $80, but then, you know, that $40 DLC that actually finishes the game over here. Again, pathetic that we're even in a discussion that we need to ask for something like that, but here we are. So those are just a couple things off the top of my head. You let me know what you think in the comments. Like, is it worth it, $80, or what would make it worth it for you guys? Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.